Let's talk about processing urges. So the first thing that's so important for you to know, and I need you to really listen up here, is that the purpose of processing urges or allowing urges or sitting with, or however you want to say it, the purpose is to get really good at sitting with that sensation of an urge. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. The purpose is not to make the urge go away. This is willpower. And I know like that sounds funny because what I just said in the last video was how you make all this over desire go away is you sit with the urges, and that's true. That's very true. But if that's in the back of our mind while we're processing urges, if we're like, okay, I'm processing this so it'll go away, that turns into willpower. Okay. So stick with me here for a minute. Instead, I want you to shift the reason that you're processing the urge to get really good at sitting with this sensation. Okay, just like failure, if we use that same failure example, if we're going to get really good at feeling failure, we're not going to do that so that we stop feeling failure, but so that we can feel failure and it's not that big of a deal. And so yes, sitting with these urges will make this over desire go away. And it'll make it so we're not having all these automatic urges all the time, just like Pavlov's dogs. But the purpose and what I want you to go into it with is this idea that I'm just going to get so good at feeling this that when I do have these urges pop up, they're not that big of a deal because I know how to sit with them and I'm really comfortable with this emotion and I'm comfortable with this discomfort, right? So energy here is really important. And really, processing urges is just all about the energy. You might have, and of course, you can always bring questions to the Ask a Coach board or a coaching call, like, is this processing? Is this not? We're happy to walk you through all of that. But just remember, it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as the energy is, yeah, you can be here. I'm feeling this urge. This urge can be here with me, instead of the energy being go away, go away, go away, go away. That's why I want to make sure that, like, when we're doing this, our purpose isn't so that it goes away. Because if our purpose is to process this so it goes away, turns into willpower, and then we're not really processing it. So the energy behind all of this, all these techniques I'm going to teach you, it's just really simple. You can be here. The energy is allowing this urge. The energy is letting this urge in our body, and that's okay. One other thing I want to talk about too is you will probably experience what I call urge flow. The urge is coming in and out, especially when you're first doing this work and maybe first bringing down a lot of over desire. So don't get discouraged if you process an urge and you're like, oh wait, it went away. That's amazing. I did it correctly. And then it comes back a little bit longer. Okay. You didn't do it wrong if it comes back. That's just more opportunity for you to continue processing and allowing that feeling. I like to think of it like a wave, especially here in the beginning where it comes in and then maybe process it and it goes out and it comes in and out and in and out. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Okay. So how we process our urges is just like processing our feelings. If you've already done the emotions and buffering module, it's very similar. I want to talk about stop, drop, and breathe. This is the simplest technique I can use to help you learn how to do this. So first we stop. We call it out. We say to ourselves, hey, we're feeling an urge. We stop and we notice it. For some of us, this might be kind of a hard step. It sounds really simple. We're having urges on social media and we're scrolling social media and we kind of have this intent in the back of our mind to find something provocative, but we don't really call it out or say what it is. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves looking at porn. This is where we want to practice the skill of stopping and just being really aware. What is it that I'm trying to get out of this, right? What am I looking for? Am I having urges right now? This will come as you practice it and as you get rid of all the shame around your feelings and as you start to neutralize it a little bit. This is also this stop step is practicing being the observer. So instead of being in your brain and believing all the thoughts that come in or trying to ignore your thoughts and judging all your thoughts and judging yourself for having an urge and why am I like, what's wrong with me? I shouldn't even be on social media looking for this. I'm such a disgusting human, right? Instead of all of that, we want to practice being a little bit above that and just observing and just noticing what's going on without judgment, without harsh words towards ourselves. So this is stop. Stop and call it out. I'm feeling an urge. Number 2 is drop. So this is where we drop into our body. You can ask yourself these questions, and I have a worksheet here under this video that will ask these questions for you that you can fill out for yourself. But you'll drop into your body. Where do I feel this in my body? So for example, when I have an urge to eat a bunch of sugar, my mouth salivates a little bit, and then I notice my heart gets a little tight and my gut starts to feel a little heavy. And if you haven't done this before, it's okay if you don't know exactly what this feels like. We're going to practice, but we're going to drop into our bodies. What does this feel like in my body? First off, where do I feel it? Do I feel it in my throat, in my gut, in my shoulders, in my arms, in my head, in my face, in my legs? Do I feel it in my sacral area? Where do I feel this? Is it fast or slow? What is this sensation like? Does it feel fast or slow? There's not a right or wrong answer here. It's just you trying to observe this sensation, this vibration in your body. Does it feel hard or soft? Does it feel fluid or not? Does it have a color? Asking yourself these questions, and I know they sound a little bit funny if you've never done it before, but it helps you get really intimate with this vibration. Remember in this last video, I talked about how all an urge is a vibration in your body, and asking yourself these questions can help you get really intimate with that vibration and see, what does this really feel like? With dropping into your body, I really want to make sure that you're not confusing this with thoughts. So for example, sometimes I have clients say to me, I'm like, well, what does it feel like? And they say, just feels like it needs to happen right now. Or it feels like I just need to go and look at it right now. Or, whatever that is. But do you see how that is a thought? It's not an actual feeling, a sensation. These feeling sensations are adjectives. Thoughts are going to be, even if you add, I feel like, those are really thoughts. So if you notice your brain going up there, that's okay. Just bring it back down into your body. So you're like, okay, breathe. Okay, I notice I feel some tightness in my chest and it feels like I'm going to die. That's your thoughts. Okay, that was a thought. All right, back in. What does it really feel like? It feels tight. Okay, breathe. What else does it feel like? It feels really heavy. Okay, breathe. It feels like, all right, I feel like I just need to look at it. Nope, that's a thought. Back into our body. Okay, I have an example under the emotions and buffering videos, a live example of me going through this with someone that you can watch. And then lastly, breathe. So you drop into your body and then you breathe into it. So often we want to tense our shoulders and we want to feel really tight, and that's a sign of resisting. So if you notice yourself being really tight, that's you resisting. So I want you to breathe and relax and ask yourself, where do I feel it? And breathe. Where do I feel it? Breathe. What does it feel like? Breathe. What does it feel like? Breathe. Okay. And this doesn't have to be a big, long process that you're doing for 10 minutes. Often I'll coach my clients through it and it'll maybe take 10 minutes of us just doing it together. And that's an amazing, awesome thing to do. And you can do that, but it doesn't have to be that long. It can be very quick and simple. Let's say you notice an urge while you're out driving. You're driving to work, you don't have time to stop, drop, and breathe for 10 minutes, but you can just do it in the car. Stop, I'm noticing I'm feeling an urge. Where am I feeling it? In these areas. It feels really tight, feels heavy, it feels fast. And breathe. And then move on. And then come back and do that over and over again. Here are some other ideas for processing urges that you can implement. You can pretend like you're describing it to a Martian. So imagine a Martian shows up who doesn't have a human body, has never experienced an urge, and you're telling this Martian about your urge. You're like, I want to quit viewing porn, but it's so hard because I have these urges that just make me really want to look at it. And they're like, oh, really? What is an urge? Can you explain it to me? And you're like, well, it's this drop, right? We're getting into the drop. Well, it feels like my heart's on fire and I feel shaky. And the Martian says, your heart's on fire? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a big deal. And you're like, no, my heart isn't actually on fire. It just feels like it. And they're like, okay, tell me more. You're like, it feels just like there's a big hole in my gut. They're like, there's a hole in your gut? You're like, no, there's not an actual hole in my gut. It just kind of feels that way. And they're like, okay, tell me more. You're like, well, it feels like there's just something inside me making me do it. I'm like, there's something inside you making you do it? And you're like, no, there's nothing inside me actually making me do it, but my hands feel shaky and I feel breathy, and I feel like my face is fuzzy, or whatever it is, the sensations that you have. And describe these sensations to a Martian, pretend that you're doing that, and you can start to see there isn't anything in there that's actually going wrong. This is just a really uncomfortable feeling, okay? And it's more uncomfortable because you're resisting it. You can watch it from across the room, so pretend, stop, drop, and breathe, and you can close your eyes and just pretend like you're noticing it from across the room. What's it doing? Maybe you notice, oh, it got really strong, and then it let up. Got really strong, let up. Oh, it's starting to feel fuzzy and a little shaky. I'm starting to feel just really restless. Maybe I feel some tightness. Just pretend like you're watching it from across the room. You can watch it across the room with your brain too, and notice as you have thoughts, like what thoughts make the urge stronger. So maybe you process it and you sit with it and it goes away. And then you notice that you have this thought, actually, I think it would be a really good time for me to go look at porn. No one's here. I really want it. And you notice the urge comes back stronger. You can start to notice what thoughts bring this urge stronger as you're processing it. It'd be so good for you to start noticing and paying attention to. You can pretend to hold it in your hand with peace and childlike curiosity. So let's get this urge out here and let's hold it. What is it doing? Does it have a color? I know it sounds a little funny, but it's really helpful. Does it have a color? Does it have a shape? If we're just like curious, so curious, what is this sensation instead of all the drama? Like, I shouldn't be feeling this. This is bad. I can't do this. Right? And take that and apply that to, if you aren't holding it outside your hand, but just inside your body, approach it with childlike curiosity. What's happening here? I'm feeling all these sensations. What is this? Stop, drop, and breathe into it. And then lastly, open up to it, allow it, and even move towards it. Remember, this urge is not dangerous. It can't make you do anything. All it is a sensation, a vibration in your body. So the more you can open up to it, allow it, see it for what it truly is, move towards it, the more you'll be able to sit with it, process it, and the more self-control you will have. Many of us think that self-control is about like forcing ourselves to do stuff. No, self-control is about being able to feel whatever you need to feel in your body and not act on it if you choose not to. And so that's what we're learning to do here. We're learning to get rid of the fear. We're learning to stop giving it more power than it really has. We're learning to feel it in our body and like strip it down to what it really is, which is tightness, heaviness, whatever the sensations are, restlessness, and see it for that instead of over dramatizing it in our minds. Okay. Here are some tips. The first tip is to watch your language. That sounds like I'm chastising someone for swearing. Watch your language. What I mean is we want to keep our language as neutral as possible. Okay. So sometimes I'll have clients that say, well, when I'm into it, it's just enticing black smoke, or it's a terrible, miserable pull, right? Do you see how those words, terrible, miserable, they're not really describing what it is. They're using very intense language. So instead, when you find yourself using those words, I want you to ask yourself, okay, if we're to get a little bit more neutral and more factual, what is that? What is that terrible? Is it hot? Is it tight? Is it fast? I have those worksheets that'll help you do that too, remember. Okay, so keep your language as neutral as possible when you find yourself wanting to be really dramatic about what the urge is. Okay, and the other tip I have is to process your smaller urges to scroll or fantasize. And this might be like a little like advanced processing 2.0 after you get the hang of this and get really good at it with like the bigger ones that you notice. Then you're going to start noticing that you're having smaller urges to scroll, like I talked about earlier, with the intent to maybe find something, or to fantasize. You're having urges to fantasize about certain things that you like or certain things that you've seen. And so I want you to notice that as an urge too. Those are urges. Any desire to fantasize or scroll are urges too. And this desire, being in that place will also release dopamine. So I want you to process these smaller urges. So I'm noticing myself really wanting to think about a lot of this and fantasize. Okay, stop, drop, and breathe. Breathe into this urge. And then we can move and go do something else, not with the intent to make the urge go away, but just because we're going to move on with our day. So one last thing I have that's not here on the slide that I want to say to you is kind of back to here, this slide. The energy is important. So when I'm talking about processing urges, I don't mean you have to sit at your desk with your computer in front of you and just feel these urges, right? We can move on with our day. We can go and do things that we would be doing if we weren't struggling with pornography and be feeling the urges at the same time. So I think it's important, especially as you're getting used to it, to stop and be still and practice just sitting with it. But as you get the hang of it, you can be doing this while you're on a walk. Just want to make sure that the energy, like if you're like, okay, I'm going to go on a walk, it's not like I'm going to go on a walk to make this urge go away, but it's like, yeah, this urge is hanging out with me today and just letting it be here. And then we're going to go on a walk while I'm processing it. Okay. Do you see the difference? And then of course, bring your questions to the Ask a Coach. I love working through this on coaching calls, so submit a request to be coached if you want me to help you process urges. But this should give you a really good foundation and some places to start, and you have all the information here in this video that you need to start practicing processing these urges. You got this. It's going to be totally life-changing.